just a few weeks after Putin invited foreign journalists to see the supposedly encircled Ukrainian army in Kupiansk, which Russia rushed to proclaim captured. The Ukrainian army counterattacked to liberate the majority of this town and a significant area around it. In the meantime, Ukraine and the United States are working around the clock to design an acceptable peace deal, only for Russia to then probably reject it. Well, that is certainly the impression one can get from Putin's statements and those of his officials. Welcome to another update on the war in Ukraine, where we discuss the most recent military and diplomatic developments. Do you know why thousands of people on YouTube and Patreon support us financially? Because they get history you won't find anywhere else. We release 3 new exclusive videos every week. Plus, they get perks like early access to all videos, voting rights on upcoming series and videos, access to our private Discord, our production schedule, and much more. Right now, 250 exclusive episodes are waiting for members and patrons, including from our series on the Eastern Front of World War II, Spanish War of Succession, the Punic Wars, the Pacific War, the Iberian Reconquista, the Russian Revolution and Civil War, the North African and Italian campaigns of World War II, Sicilian Wars between the Greeks and Carthaginians, and many others. By joining, you're not only unlocking rare content, you're also supporting the stories you love. Your help allows us to keep producing 3 free videos per week while paying our team competitive salaries and growing the channel. Join via the links in the description, the pinned comment, or by pressing the join button under the video. Thanks for making this possible. So, what is happening in Kupiansk? After more than 2 years of trying to remove the Ukrainian army from the eastern bank of the Oskil, an operation for which control of Kupiansk is a crucial element, on December 2nd, Putin finally announced the capture of Kupiansk. Yet, even then, the battle for the town was still underway, and the Russian army had not yet established complete control over Kupiansk. Such is how the Russian military command operates. They tend to exaggerate their gains and claim the capture of areas where battles are still underway. This has resulted in several embarrassments for Russia already. Furthermore, since the command has proclaimed the capture of a town, the Russian units fighting for it are forced to intensify their assaults to actually realize what their command has already declared to the world. This often leads to even higher losses for the Russian army. This time, only 10 days after Putin's speech, the 13th Operation Brigade Katia, the 475th Assault Regiment, the 92nd Assault Brigade, the 144th Mechanized Brigade, and elements of Ukrainian Special Forces launched a counterattack, breaking through to the Oskil River and cutting off the Russian supply lines to Kupiansk. As a result, the Ukrainians have already liberated Radkivka, Kindrashivka, and Miena, along with the majority of Kupiansk. Around 100 Russian soldiers remain encircled in Kupiansk as the battles for it are still ongoing as we speak. So, while the Russian army maintains overall momentum on the battlefield, the Ukrainian military continues to demonstrate its ability to conduct successful offensive operations. Further south, the Russians have gained ground in their pincer movement on Lyman and captured more territory in Siversk. Both of these operations are part of the effort to approach Slavyansk, the northern tip of the Donbas fortress belt, which Putin continues demanding that Ukraine give up without a fight. Another area where Russia has already proclaimed victory is Pokrovsk, and although some of it remains contested, it looks like the Russian army will complete the capture of both Pokrovsk and Minohrad sooner rather than later. At some point there were fears that at least some Ukrainian units remained encircled in Minohrad, but it looks like they have managed to break through out of this town. When Russia began its advance on Pokrovsk, the town was rightly considered an important logistical node for the Ukrainian army. However, since then it has lost its strategic value to the Ukrainian military's defensive effort, as the Russians have already captured all territories that could have relied on Pokrovsk for supplies. Right now, a victory in Pokrovsk is not a strategic win, but another mid-sized town captured by Russia in Donbas. In our previous video, we reported on a Russian breakthrough around Huliaipole. In November, they advanced rapidly by about 20 kilometers westwards. Although the Ukrainian army has managed to stabilize the situation to some degree and avoid a localized collapse, Russia continues to make progress at a slower pace in December. They have advanced on Dobropilya, Priluki, Vavarivka and Selena, and have gained ground inside Huliaipole as they continue their push deeper into Dnipropetrovsk Oblast. In December, both militaries continued using their long-range strike capabilities to damage each other's military, economic and civilian infrastructures. Ukraine's power grid remains the main target of Russian airstrikes, causing temporary blackouts throughout the country. It appears that the immediate goal of the Russian airstrike campaign is to split the Ukrainian power grid into two. A spokesperson of Ukrenergo, the state electricity transmission system operator, stated that Russia has conducted 8 massive missile and drone attacks since October, explicitly targeting the country's electricity distribution infrastructure. Ukraine is storing most of its electricity in the west and then transmits it to the eastern oblasts. Right now, most of the Russian strikes are targeting Chernihiv, Sumy, Kharkiv, Kherson and Odessa oblasts. The destruction of the transmission infrastructure in eastern oblasts would create a devastating situation there. And the Russian propaganda could easily frame a narrative stating that while the western oblasts are living comfortably, the Russian-speaking east is suffering from blackouts and no heating under the Ukrainian Nazi regime, and of course conveniently forgetting why these blackouts occur in the first place. We may expect Russia's drone strike capabilities to expand further in the near future. Both Ukrainian and Russian sources report on new modifications to Shahed drones. Previously, they attacked according to pre-planned routes and targets set for them in advance. But now, apparently, Russian drone operators can control Shahed drones manually. This will increase their effectiveness and enable them to target Ukraine's mobile anti-drone groups, specifically tasked with shooting down Shaheds. Meanwhile, Ukraine is focusing on Russia's oil infrastructure, storage facilities and oil refineries. On December 11th, for the first time in this war, Ukraine struck Russia's oil platform in the Caspian Sea. A day before that, Ukraine's Sea Baby naval drones struck Russia's Shadow Fleet tanker on its way to Novorossiysk. Another Shadow Fleet tanker was struck by a sea drone on December 19th, as far as the neutral waters of the Mediterranean. But perhaps most notably, for the first time in the history of naval warfare, an underwater drone, Sub-Sea Baby, struck Russia's Vashivyanka-class submarine, carrying 4 Caliber cruise missile launchers at the Novorossiysk maritime base, causing significant damage to the vessel on December 15th. Ukraine continues innovating to minimize the impact of Russia's Black Sea Fleet. Furthermore, the destruction of expensive military equipment by cheap and disposable unmanned systems has become an essential feature of the war in Ukraine. This war is giving everyone a peek at how wars will be fought in the near future. But while such events are essential for understanding the nature of modern warfare, Ukraine's strikes on Russia's oil infrastructure and its Shadow Fleet, along with its general resistance after almost 4 years of Russian aggression, are more important right now because they degrade the Kremlin's ability to continue waging this aggression indefinitely. Even pro-government Russian economists warn about the degradation of Russia's economy and how things are likely to get worse in 2026. Right now, Russia's inflation is estimated to exceed 20%. The Russian Ministry of Finance expects the country's primary revenue source, oil and gas, to halve in 2026 compared with 2025. Russia has been spending its sovereign wealth fund's liquid reserves to finance its war, and has now begun doing the same with its gold reserves. The value-added tax has also increased, which will lead to further price hikes for consumers. Many businesses are struggling to repay their loans. This includes large businesses operating in strategic sectors such as metallurgy. Russia's military-industrial complex may have reached its maximum capacity at this point, as most of its plants and factories are already working 3 shifts. Expanded production will require the construction of new facilities, which would need time and significant investment. Regional authorities are publicly talking about budget shortages. Remember, this information is coming from official sources or pro-government economists. The Russian economy still has resources to wage war, but it may be reaching its worst point since the start of the war. These economic difficulties will make it harder for the Russian military to recruit contract soldiers. Putin still does not want to order another round of mandatory mobilization. Instead, on December 8th, he signed a decree allowing the call-up of reservists. In the coming months, we will likely see more reservists being sent to Ukraine. If that indeed happens, then there is a potential for social discontent in Russia. But even with all these rising costs of waging war in Ukraine, Putin is confident that time is on his side, and Ukraine's struggles will force Kyiv to give up the fight sooner than Russia's economic woes get too much to bear. And this gives Putin confidence to nonchalantly dismiss diplomacy, insisting instead on Ukraine's capitulation and his maximalist goals. After the Trump administration was unable to force the unfavorable 28-point peace deal on Ukraine, the two sides engaged in very busy diplomatic activity throughout December. By all accounts, the negotiations are not going easily. The status of Donbas and other occupied territories, the fate of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, the frozen Russian assets, and security guarantees for Ukraine are the main sticking points. Zelensky's advisor, Podolyak, told the French newspaper Le Monde that Ukraine agreed to a demilitarized buffer zone in Donbas under the condition that both Russian and Ukrainian militaries would be removed from the area. And Kyiv would only consider giving up Donbas if it were to receive strong and functioning security guarantees. You know, not like the ones in the Budapest Memorandum, which were ignored. And apparently Ukraine, strongly backed by the European Union, has found a formula with the United States. The United States is ready to provide Article 5-like security guarantees to Ukraine, which Congress would also adopt. The Americans would also lead a ceasefire monitoring and verification mechanism, along with promising support and facilitation for efforts related to Ukraine's post-war reconstruction. Meanwhile, the Council of the European Union reiterated its commitment to coordinate a multinational force, which will help in the regeneration of Ukraine's forces, in securing Ukraine's skies, and in supporting safer seas, including through operating inside Ukraine, supported by the United States. Zelensky also agreed to hold elections in Ukraine within 60 to 90 days if the United States and Europe were ready to ensure its security. Undoubtedly a step he took to counter one of the Russian government's propaganda points about the illegitimacy of Zelensky's presidency. But Russian officials were quick to dismiss Zelensky's offer. They also rejected his offer to implement a moratorium on long-range strikes. And many other statements made by Putin and his officials demonstrate that the Kremlin is not interested in peace talks. Even before Ukraine, the United States and Europe unveiled a new peace plan, and Lavrov rejected several provisions of the original 28-point plan. He rejected freezing the current line of contact in Zaporizhia and Kherson oblasts. He does not want to see any Western troops in Ukraine. He opposes Western countries providing any security guarantees to Ukraine. He even went further, reiterating the Russian demand that NATO roll back its post-1997 expansion. Putin himself continues praising Trump's diplomatic activity while insulting European leaders, clearly trying to deepen the wedge between the United States and the EU. But while applauding Trump, he has also pointed to Russia's terms stated in 2024. These terms demand Ukraine's withdrawal from all of Donetsk, Kherson and Zaporizhia oblasts. So, after months of active diplomacy by the United States, we can easily decipher Putin's strategy here. He pays lip service by praising Trump's diplomatic efforts. He is happy to talk to Trump and his envoys to discuss future business relations with the United States, and to demonstrate that the Americans are no longer isolating him. Putin is essentially imitating diplomacy, while offering Ukraine and the West two options, either capitulation or the continuation of war. And Ukraine needs money to continue defending against the Russian onslaught. For months, the European Union has been discussing the feasibility of providing Ukraine with a reparations loan from the Russian assets frozen in Europe. Although the majority supported this plan, the legal difficulties on the one hand, and the opposition from Putin-friendly European leaders like Viktor Orban on the other, made reaching a consensus impossible. Finally, on December 19th, the EU found a compromise. They will give Ukraine 90 billion euros for next year, which it would have to repay only after Russia pays reparations to Ukraine. So while this is not an ideal scenario for Kyiv, it still helps them to keep the country afloat in the fourth year of this grueling war. Having said that, it is essential to note that foreign military support to Ukraine has been declining in 2025. According to the Kiel Institute, in 2025, Ukraine received 32.5 billion euros worth of military aid, 9.1 billion less than in 2024. In December, the Netherlands, Germany, Poland and Norway pledged to provide $500 million to purchase weapons from the United States. On December 16th, the German Defense Minister Pistorius stated that they will send a large batch of Sidewinder air-to-air missiles to Ukraine. On the same day, Britain announced £600 million of support for Ukraine's air defense, which includes air defense systems, missiles, and automated anti-drone turrets. So we are approaching the fourth year of the full-scale invasion of Ukraine by Russia. In 2025, Russia has captured more territory, but its pace of advance remains extremely slow. According to the Institute for the Study of War, Russia has captured a mere 0.77% of Ukraine's territory. In his most recent speech, Putin noted that Russia currently has 700,000 troops in Ukraine. If we consider that Russia had around 200,000 soldiers in the initial invasion, 300,000 more mobilized in late 2022, 350,000 recruited in 2023, 450,000 in 2024, and 400,000 in 2025. By the way, all numbers reported by the Russian government. including further hundreds of thousands mobilized from the occupied Ukrainian territories, volunteers, inmates and Wagnerites. What happened to the remaining more than 1 million soldiers? The losses have been staggering. Indeed, one may wonder if the deepening economic crisis, on top of these massive losses, would be the thing that pushes the ordinary Russians to question whether all the deaths and resources poured into this war have been worth it. Let's conclude our video by looking at visually documented equipment losses suffered by both parties as of December 21st, according to the data compiled by Oryx blog. Russia has lost at least 4,273 tanks, 10,576 vehicles, 312 command posts and communication stations, 2,248 artillery systems and vehicles, 172 aircraft, and 166 helicopters. Ukraine has lost at least 1,351 tanks, 5,757 vehicles, 80 command posts and communication stations, 1,123 artillery systems and vehicles, 112 aircraft, and 53 helicopters. Further updates on the Russian invasion of Ukraine are on the way. If you don't want to miss them, make sure you are subscribed and have pressed the bell button to see them. Please consider liking, subscribing, commenting and sharing, it helps immensely. Our patrons and YouTube members can watch more than 200 exclusive videos. Join their ranks via the link in the description or by pressing the join button under the video to watch these weekly videos, learn about our schedule, get early access to our videos, access our private Discord, and much more. This is the Kings and Generals channel, and we will catch you on the next one.